What if I told you that justice doesn't argue, debate, or negotiate? It simply collects, and everything wrong will eventually be accounted for. We live in a world obsessed with arguments. Courts argue over evidence. Lawyers argue over loopholes. Politicians argue over morality and fairness. But the truth is far simpler and far more inevitable. Justice doesn't argue, it collects. Justice is not a matter of opinion. It is not swayed by charisma, power, or influence. It is a force that gathers every action, every intention, every harm, and every truth, and ensures that balance is restored. This is time for justice. Justice operates on a completely different level than human systems. Unlike us, justice is not convinced by words, excuses, or clever arguments. It does not negotiate with lies. It does not delay for convenience. And it certainly doesn't overlook harm just because of social status or wealth. Imagine justice as a universal ledger, meticulously keeping track of everything. Every theft, every betrayal, every act of corruption is recorded. Every lie, every deception, and every manipulation is stored. But it's not all negative. Every act of kindness, every moment of honesty, and every display of integrity is also noted and amplified. The truth nobody talks about is this: human arguments may sway public opinion, but they have absolutely no effect on the ledger of justice. No matter how clever a lie is, no matter how sophisticated a cover-up, justice keeps track of the original debt. The entry remains, waiting. Many people believe that courts, laws, and governments are the enforcers of justice. But these systems are flawed and limited. They rely on evidence that can be hidden or manipulated. They are subject to human bias, corruption, and infuriating delays. And far too often, they fail to protect the powerless. Yet, even when human systems fail, justice continues its collection process beyond our sight. It operates through what you might call universal law. Every harmful act creates a kind of energetic imbalance that must be corrected. This is the karma of justice. Moral consequences don't expire. They accumulate, gaining weight and power until they are finally addressed. Think of the ripple effects. The harm done to victims, communities, and institutions doesn't just disappear. It gets absorbed, creating pressure and tension that ensures eventual accountability, often in unexpected ways. Actions are also recorded in moral and spiritual dimensions, regardless of whether they are ever recognized on earth. The truth nobody talks about is this: justice doesn't need our courts, lawyers, or judges. It collects relentlessly, patiently ensuring that balance will, one day, be restored. So why do we put so much faith in arguments? Human systems are built on them. Lawyers argue cases. Politicians argue policies. We, as citizens, argue about what's right and wrong. We believe that the most convincing argument wins, but justice itself is not persuaded by words. It's an observer, not a participant in the debate. A lie, no matter how often it's repeated, cannot erase the truth it was meant to hide. A bribe cannot erase the consequence of the crime it facilitated. And denying responsibility cannot prevent the inevitable accountability that is coming. Justice simply observes, collects, and waits for the perfect moment to deliver its verdict. This is why we see corrupt leaders eventually face collapse, often from an internal weakness they thought they had under control. It's why hidden crimes, sometimes decades old, suddenly surface. It's why victims who were ignored and silenced for years finally see their truth acknowledged and find restoration. The truth nobody talks about is this: argument may delay the perception of truth, but it cannot erase the record of actions. Justice always collects. Now, this doesn't mean we are helpless bystanders. While justice collects independently, our actions can influence its course. We can choose to align ourselves with truth and accelerate the process. Speaking the truth is a powerful act. Every whistleblower, every piece of testimony, every exposure of wrongdoing feeds the ledger of justice and adds weight to the side of truth. Documenting injustice is another crucial step. Evidence strengthens the collection process and speeds up accountability. Supporting victims is also vital. Advocacy and solidarity ensure that the energy of harm is countered by awareness and collective action, preventing the injustice from being forgotten. Most importantly, acting with integrity in our own lives is a powerful statement. Every ethical decision we make aligns us with this universal law, contributing to balance rather than imbalance. We have to trust in this process. Even when our flawed human systems fail, we must have faith that universal justice continues to collect and will eventually ensure consequences. The truth nobody talks about is this: our actions don't replace justice, but they can guide it, align with it, and help bring fairness and balance into the world much sooner. Living with this awareness that justice is always collecting changes everything. It transforms how we see the world and how we live in it. Suddenly, integrity matters profoundly. You realize that every action, big or small, leaves a permanent mark in that universal ledger. Accountability is no longer a one-time event in a courtroom. It's a continuous, ongoing process. Nothing escapes observation, whether it's by human eyes or by the universe itself. This understanding is incredibly empowering, especially for those who feel wronged. Victims are never truly powerless because justice is collecting on their behalf, even when it's invisible. It gives us faith in restoration. It reminds us that even delayed consequences are inevitable. Most of all, it encourages alignment with truth. When you know the system is designed for balance, you naturally want to act ethically to ensure your own energy contributes to that balance, rather than creating a debt you'll one day have to pay. The truth nobody talks about is this: justice does not argue, it does not negotiate, it does not forget. It simply collects, and what is due will eventually arrive. This is time for justice. In the end, arguments will continue to dominate our human conversations. Courts will debate, lawyers will dispute, and societies will argue endlessly over what is fair. But remember that justice itself is silent, impartial, and relentless. It collects every action, every intention, and every consequence. It records every lie, every betrayal, and every act of corruption. And at the same time, it notes and amplifies every act of honesty, kindness, and truth. The principle is simple, yet profound. Justice doesn't argue, it collects. And everything is eventually accounted for. Understanding this transforms fear into vigilance, helplessness into action, and chaos into an underlying promise of balance. This is time for justice. If this made you think, subscribe. Truth needs witnesses.